Hi guys, it's Julie, and I've been playing with the Clever Sausage stamp set, and I've been dying to make this Push Me Pull You card. Now, I call it a Push Me Pull You, but I know that there are several cards out there referred to as double sliders, and they actually operate a little bit differently from each other, but they're both called double sliders. So I call it Push Me Pull You because it reminds me of the Push Me Pull You from the Dr. Dolittle movie when I was a kid. Now, I've taken a sentiment here from the Voices in My Head, Volume 2, because it seemed very perfect for this card. And I trimmed it apart using those cross-lock scissors that have a really nice fine detail blade on them. And I could get into those tight spots. So I trimmed it apart to make it work the way I needed it to. And I've got it mounted here on to my new mini Misty. This is from the collab between Hero Arts and My Sweet Petunia. And I'm so happy to have this tool in black and white. Pink is okay, but I'm not really a pink girl. So having it in black and white, I just love having my tools in black and white. So now I'm going to heat emboss this with my heat gun. And I did emboss with Versamark ink. I stamped with Versamark ink, and then I heat embossed with white detail powder. And I like using detail embossing powders when I'm working with sentiments because it just seems to give me a much better, finer finish than if I use regular grind. So now I've grabbed another portion of that sentiment and another strip of black cardstock, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to get that loaded onto the lid there, ink up with the Versamark, and I did prep the surface with the anti-static pouch. I don't know, I've been dealing with a lot of static electricity here lately, and I'm not really sure why. But anyway, I've been having a hard time embossing if I don't prep the surface first. So I've got that heat embossed, and I found that it was easier to heat emboss it than to leave it with just the powder on it because you need to see where you're going to put the rest of the sentiment there so you can get it all lined up. And if you have it all heat embossed before you put that last portion on, then you're not going to end up messing up where the powder is. So yeah, just a word to the wise there. So now I'm going to go ahead. It's mounted where I need it to be. Just going to ink up. And you'll never know when you see it all embossed, it's going to look like it should and that it was designed to work that way the whole time. See? Pretty spiffy, right? And it would go a lot faster if I weren't heat embossing. But for this card, I was using the black cardstock, and it just made sense to heat emboss it. Now I've got a big city skyline cut from a Nina Solar White, and that's a quarter sheet of cardstock. And then I've got my embossed sentiments on black, and I already heat embossed the dog and the skateboard and blended inks onto the surface there and then attached them with some glue dots so that he looks like he's riding his skateboard there. And then I'm going to need a real skinny strip of plastic to create the mechanism here. So I just took a sheet protector. I guess you could try a shopping, a plastic grocery bag, but those are kind of hard to trim down and make sure that the edges are all straight. If you're working with a wider channel than that, you could probably get away with that. But because I needed this to be a very certain size, certain width, and it needed to be straight, not raggedy at all to fit in that channel, the page protector worked awesome. So I'll have the measurements for that listed down below. So I trimmed it apart because I ended up having two strips that I can use for this type of card. Now I'm going to be working with a slot die from the Parcel Box die set. I have always wondered if I could pull this off using that die from that die set, and yes, it works. So I'm really, really stoked about this. So I took my black piece of cardstock that's going to eventually go on the front, and I dropped it a quarter of an inch, and then I drew a pencil line there so that I knew where to position this slot die. It's going to go right there, so it's hanging off the other side because I only need one slot on each side, not two. And it gives me the appropriate distance. You'll see what I mean later on. But I went ahead and sent that through using the pencil line to line it up, die cut it twice so I could get those slots die cut parallel to each other. And then I'm going to use a 3/4 inch circle punch to punch out a little finger notch there. And then I also needed the same notch on that black piece that's going to go on the front. So I just slapped it on there so I could line them up and punch another semicircle in the same spot. So now you can see my slider tab is going to go on the back of my big city there. And it's a little bit long. So I'm going to trim off the end that goes on the left-hand side that's going to get attached here to the piece of plastic. And I'm threading my piece of plastic here through these slots, and now you can see why I needed those edges to be nice and straight. Oh, that Fiskars trimmer did a great job slicing that stuff up. And then I'm going to put a little bit of Be Creative tape there. And you want to hook these two together. You want to attach the ends, but you do not want this loop of plastic to be too tight. So you can see I'm kind of slipping my finger in there pretty easy. So it's not snug to the cardstock surface. It's got a little bit of give and flux there. So I can slip my finger underneath it. And then I'm just going to slide it so that the place where I put that tape is over to the far right. So I'm looking at the front here. Now I'm going to flip it over to the back. And this is where my pull tab is going to get attached. So it's going to get attached to the back side on the left-hand side. So I've got another piece of that Be Creative tape that I've put there. And then I'm going to flip that over upside down and press that firmly in place. And I'm just using the grid there on my work surface to make sure that it's all nice and straight. And there you can see my thumb notch. It's not very stable right now because it's just one piece of cardstock, but it's going to become as I build the card together. So now I've added some foam tape. So I have a channel there to keep that slider tab in place. And then I'm going to add more foam tape to support the rest of the big city. And you'll notice I've got a stop gap there so that my pull tab does not, poke out the other side of the card when everything's put together. I've added more foam tape to the front of the big city, and I'm careful to avoid that strip of plastic because this is going to get mounted over the top, and I need to make sure that nothing impedes the movement of my strip of plastic. And there you can see where I've got the ends secured, and I'm making sure that it's over there to the far right. Now I've taken a scrap piece of acetate and cut it into a strip, and I want to make sure it was tall enough that it could attach to the dog and attach to my strip of plastic. So I'm going to add more Be Creative tape to the bottom of that and then position that towards the right side where my plastic strips are joined together. So all of that adhesive and stuff is going on that right hand side. So once I have that ready to go, you'll notice that piece of acetate is really tall, so it'll get hung up on the skyscrapers if you don't trim it down. So I've gone ahead and mounted that front panel and tested the slider just to make sure everything's working the way it should be. And then I removed the liner tape from the back side. I'm going to hang on to that pull tab just to make sure it doesn't get caught or sandwiched accidentally between the foam tape and the card front. And then I've gone ahead and pressed that down, and here I'm just testing one more time, make sure everything is sliding properly. And then the last step is to mount my little dachshund while he's sliding by past the city. And I added some foam tape there, again making sure that I could attach the dog but not impede the movement of that sliding mechanism. And then I'm just going to take my scissors and go around behind the dog and trim off that excess there. And then when I pull this, as you pull to the right, the doggy magically goes to the left. And then when you push it back in, he comes back to his starting position. That's why I call it a push me, pull you. They're so fun and easy. I hope you stop by the blog, check out the measurements and all of that, and give this project a try. Thanks for watching, and hope y'all are staying safe and healthy.